Hello and welcome to day 10 of the challenge. The bankroll is now at $170. So I'm well on track to start taking shots at 16 and all soon, which I'm pretty happy about. I think I'm gonna take a shot at 16 and when I hit 200, take a 2 to 3 buy-in shot, because I think 16 and L actually plays worse than 10 and L. I'm gonna cold call here. I could squeeze, but I think cold calling is gonna be better. And just a call here. That's a pretty good flop. Basically just calling down, raising the river. He checks. Wondering if I can go for max value. I think I will. I think if he has queens, he's gonna have a hard time folding. Then again, it is brick, and people do fold a lot on bricks. So maybe I should have bet a little bit smaller. 1/3 of the pot. I'm gonna squeeze here with ace queen. If this guy calls, he probably has jacks or tens, nines, maybe ace queen too. I don't think I can profitably c-bet on this board given his range, so I'll just check it. And now that I checked the flop, I can't really represent a big pocket pair, so tens or nines aren't folding, so I'm gonna check. And check. Yeah, the eights. Maybe I could have 3-barreled, or at least 2-barreled, to get 10s, 9s, and 8s to fold. This is a board. You could check call and then check raise on turns, which is probably going to be good, but check raising the flop is going to be fine too. People don't really float check raises very light. Now they did call. Don't expect to have much full liquidity on the turn. If I had some sort of draw, I definitely would have bet it. But with just the ace, I don't think I can profitably bet. Ace king here. I'm gonna see bet. A quick call here. I'm gonna check this turn for pot control and deception. If I bet the turn, I'm not really getting much value, so I think checking is the correct play. And now I can make a value bet. I'm not gonna bet too big because I do want to get called. Pocket nines, I'm gonna 3-bet, as I would with most of my continuing range in the small blind against the button. Pretty bad flop. He has a lot of queens in his range. Queen jack suited, queen 10 suited, king queen, ace queen. So I'm just gonna start with a check. There's not really any value to be had by betting. And I'm gonna start with a check call. It's gonna be pretty tough on turns, but there's definitely still well, not on that turn. Definitely still a lot of suited aces, suited connectors in his range. He checks back the turn. I'm gonna check the river. Hope he's gonna either bluff at it or value bet a queen, putting me on jacks and tens. And he does bet. The question is, how much value can I get here? I think I'm gonna go for 2/3 pot. Don't expect to get called too often, but people tend to not like folding to river raises, so yeah, we do get called by queen jack, so that was perfectly played. We get a small 3-bet here. Given how small, oh well, now I can fold. We can watch what happens. But given how small the 3-bet was, I would have been pretty much forced to call pre-flop. I do fold a lot to 3-bets out of position because people at these stakes don't really, especially against early position, don't 3-bet very light. They have a range of 9s plus, ace queen, maybe ace jack, and if you have a hand like king jack suited or yeah, hands like that, or ace 10 suited, you're not doing too well. Here I'm gonna 4-bet. This guy made a min 3-bet, so I don't expect him to be too strong. King Jack, I will be defending my big blind against the button. He checks back, so now we have an easy bet on the turn. We're gonna take it down quite a bit. We get a cold call of 3-bet here. I'm not gonna c-bet. You could definitely have ace queen, you could have jacks, tens, nines. Now it's more likely he has jacks, tens, and nines. Or a hand like ace king high. So I think I'm gonna bet, and probably bet the river too. That's a definitely good river to be betting on. Of course you could have like ace 10 suited and pocket tens. Actually, I think actually now that he called the turn, his most likely hand is like ace king. Maybe he has slow played pocket tens. So I actually don't think I'm gonna bluff this river. I think I'm gonna see ace king way too often. But he did have pocket 7, so my read was wrong. Pocket 8, I'm just gonna cold call against another gun raise. And that's a pretty bad flop to continue on. I'm not gonna call the flop, even though I might be ahead. I'm gonna face a lot of barrels on the turn, which I can't call. And I'll be forced to either fold or turn my hand into a bluff. And my hand has very little equity. Against continuing range. I can pick better hands to float with and bluff raise, like backdoor straight draws, backdoor flush draws. Gonna see bet this board. I mean, it's not a. I'm not super happy about the situation, but I do have some equity. And I'm gonna barrel the turn to get him to fold a 10, an 8, maybe pocket jacks or 9s. But he quickly calls. At this point, I don't think there's much value. I mean, I don't think he's gonna fold a king. So I'm gonna check it. He called pretty quickly on the turn, so he could have a hand like queen jack or a flush draw, which he's definitely gonna jam. I don't think he's gonna jam king queen. He didn't even jam ace king. So I was planning to call the river jam there. Given that he didn't even value bet ace king, I think the river call would be very profitable. Here we get dunked into on the turn. Definitely could be a 10. Probably that isn't a queen. Could be a flush draw. I'm gonna call and see what he does on the river. And that's a great river. question is, how much value can I get? I mean, he could have king 10, but he could also have jack 10 or ace 10. I think I'm just gonna shove, because I don't think those hands are folding. Gonna c-bet here against two players. Take it down. Gonna limp in over here. Getting good pot outs. Gonna bet out on the flop with my big draw. Gonna barrel the turn, possibly get a queen to fold. Calling here with queen 8 suited. This is a good board to check raise. Reason being, can have 5-6 and ace-5 and all the sets. He checks back. I'm gonna bet the turn. Can have a lot of 5s in my range. And he just folds. I'm gonna 3-bet the 8-9 suited on the button. And we get snap 4-bet, so we have to fold. This guy cold call, probably has a bunch of small pocket pairs and some suited aces and maybe some Broadway type hands that he didn't want to 3-bet. Pocket fours, I mean, you could 3-bet this hand, or you could just fold. Cold calling is not going to be profitable. King 5 suited, again a hand you could 3-bet, but I don't want to. I'm already 3-betting pretty light in the small blind. I'm gonna reserve my 3-bets for better hands like suited aces and suited connectors, maybe some suited gappers, the higher up suited gappers, and then my pocket pairs and overcards. Queen 10, I think it's too weak to be 3-betting. It might be profitable, but only slightly so. I'll definitely 3-bet Queen Jack or Jack 10, but not the gappers offsuit. We have some notes on this guy. So we check raise second pair on the low board, barrel turn, check call. We're gonna call here. Check this flop. It's definitely merits to dunk betting this flop, but it's gonna be pretty tricky on the turn if I do that. I'm gonna bet the turn. And we get raised, so that's very weird. I'm gonna call. I don't expect him to value bet too thinly on this river. And he was just raising to get a free showdown, it seems, with what was a flush draw. You could definitely make an argument for 3-betting that turn. Flop a 9 here on a pretty dry board. He doesn't see bet, but if he did, you could definitely raise the flop. I think you get called pretty light. I think I gotta call this. Of course, you could have rivered a 7, but the pot odds are just too good. And he had trip 8s. Especially against a person playing with a short stack. They're quite a bit worse, and they'll make bets in situations that they shouldn't. This is pretty close. I think I would call with the ace 10 suited, but I'm gonna fold ace 9 suited. There's definitely arguments to be made for 4-betting, but I think at these stakes people don't really 3-bet too much, even blind versus blind. So expect to see a pretty strong range. I'm gonna dunk bet this board because it's not a board that he's gonna c-bet much, and that means check raising is gonna be pretty bad, and I don't wanna check call. He does call. He can still have a hand like king, queen, ace, king, and weak 10. Not a great turn to be bluffing on, but I do have the flush draw and the overcard. And because it's not a great turn to be bluffing on, I expect to have quite a bit of full equity. If I assume the guy is a reg. Gonna defend here with the 6-4. Pretty loose defend, but it was only a 2.5x open. I'm gonna bet when check too. You should pretty much always bet when check too. Blind versus blind. I mean, it depends. Like, maybe not an ace or king high board because they're checking to check call mostly. But on boards that hit your range, you should definitely be betting when check too. Because people rarely check raise. This is a spot. I could check back, or I could go for a bluff. I think I'm gonna check back because it's a pretty bad turn to be bluffing on. And when I hit my flush, he's not gonna give me credit. So the question is, how much will he call? I'm just gonna go for 2/3 spot. Expect to get called by sets and 2-pair combinations like 6-5, 4-5 pretty often. I'm gonna float out of position here. If I check raise, I don't really represent too many hands. Now on this turn I can represent a lot more hands. I can have king 10 for example, or king 5 suited. So I'm gonna check raise the turn. It's a turn that he's gonna barrel quite often. I don't have to check raise too big. It's not gonna matter too much for his range how big the check raise is. Yeah, just the fact that you check raise is gonna change your perceived range. I'm gonna 3-bet the 9 suited. It's a good suited connector. Isolating the button limper here. C-betting the flop with my overcard and gut shot. Get quickly called. Definitely betting the turn. Get value from a lot of draws and a 10, maybe even a 7 will call again. Although that's unlikely. Unless it's like 7-8. Which has gut shot. I'm just gonna cold call the king queen suited. This guy is pretty short. Flop a queen. And he checks. So I'm gonna bet because I have to protect my hand against ace X type hands. Don't want to give a free card to those hands. And if he checked so quickly on the flop, he's probably not gonna start bluffing on the turn. So there's not much value in checking. I'm going to play for 5 more minutes and then review some more boom player hands that I played in the past. You get a 3-bet here, which is pretty big from the cutoff. You could definitely 4-bet and try to get it in, but I think calling is gonna be better. Keeping his range wide, and I mean if I'm flopping top set, that's Obviously pretty easy. I'm gonna 4-bet here with the tens because this guy min 3-bet and it's pretty weak. Cold caller is also pretty weak. They're both short. Now I'm just gonna put them both all in. I'm just gonna call on the flop here. You could check raise, but I want to keep its range as wide as possible. I don't think he's gonna value bet ace king on the river here. So if he bets this river, he's got ace queen. So I'm just gonna dunk bet. I don't think he's gonna fold ace king if I bet out. So yeah, I guess he didn't have much. Gonna bet out on the turn here. When the flop checks through, you should almost always be betting the turn. Unless you have a strong reason not to. I'm gonna 3-bet queen 10 off. It's pretty loose, but it's against the cutoff, and you should definitely be pounding on the cutoff. Flop second pair with a bad kicker. Definitely not a situation to be c-betting. Turn ace is pretty interesting. I think at this point I can get a king to fold, like king jack or king 10 suited, and I'll probably get a weak ace to fold by the river. Question is, how much do I bet? I think I'm gonna go for an overbet because I want to guarantee a fold from ace jack and ace 10 suited. Gonna 3-bet here with the ace 5 suited. My hand looks like ace queen or ace king that's slow played. Maybe hand like jack 10. This is an interesting spot. I could cold call here, but there's a decent chance the under gonna raise or he's gonna shove. This guy 3-bet against a shortish stack, so he's probably got a strong range. So I'm just gonna fold. I would definitely cold call with jacks and queens, but not with tens. Great flop here. Running pretty good this session. Can't deny that. And we get check raise, so that's a pretty dirty spot. He's repping jack 10 pretty much only. We got a call, can hit a boat. We gotta call the turn too, because if I hit my boat, it's probably not folding jack 10. I'm gonna check back here. C-bet was somewhat questionable, but definitely fine because I don't want to give a free card to pocket pairs that might hit a set. So now I just check and luckily win. Not too happy about this, but I definitely have to call the turn. Just trying to hit the boat, and he might sometimes be bluffing with a flush draw, but I expect to see jack 10 most of the time. And now he's gonna tank for ages, and yeah, it's pretty easy fold. pretty much always has Jack 10. Alright, so gonna close down the tables now. And we'll check out some hands I played. So this hand was played at 50 NL. Heads up. I raise the button with ace 4. Flop of 4 and backdoor flush draw. I start with a C bet. You should definitely be C betting against players that aren't gonna check raise too much. But this guy did check raise me. But he made it very small, which is pretty suspicious. I don't think a hand like Jack 10, Jack 4 or 10-4 suited would be check raising this small. So he's mostly on air and draws. So I call. Turn is a 10, which is a pretty great card because I don't expect him to have check raised a flop with second pair. And he bets the pot, which is very polarizing. I mean, he's repping pocket 4s and Jack 10, and I have a 4, so I block those combinations. And yeah, given his small flop raise, I don't think he has Jack 10, so I pretty much have the nuts. I call, and the river is a break. He bets the pot, I call, and he had 7-8. Next hand. This was played at 500 and no heads up. I raise the button with Queen 8 and get 3 bet. I 4 bet. My hand is too weak to call a 3 bet. I guess this guy was 3 betting me a lot. Otherwise, I wouldn't be 4 betting this wide. And he calls. We flop second pair. This is a board that doesn't really hit his range. I mean, he could have a hand like Jack 10 suited, Ace 10 suited, something like that. Queen 10, King 10 suited. But he can definitely have a lot of overcards. So I bet pretty smallish, but it's a 4 bet pot, so it's fine. And he check calls. So now what is this range? I mean, he's mostly got overcard type hands that he's just floating out of position. Ace Queen, Ace Jack, maybe some backdoor flush draws. And the turn is a Jack. I decided to check back here. Pretty bad turn for me because you can definitely have Ace Jack. Can definitely still be slow playing some overpairs, but it's pretty unlikely. I expect him to raise the flop very often given how draw heavy the board is. And the river is a 7, and he shoves. At this point he's repping a flush or a straight. There's not too many other hands he's repping, and you could have a hand like 8-9 suited, I think, or I mean, he could also have a hand like pocket 9s, but why would he bet so big when I'm likely to not have a hand? It just doesn't make much sense to be shoving here. So I decided to make the call. Yeah, King Queen. Alright, that's it for now.